Nice. So anytime I talk about options, I like to do the cheat sheet a little bit. So maybe you could talk about really quickly like puts, calls, and like being in the money and out the money, and like just like give them at like a high level for anyone who's listening and isn't up to date or clear with that.
Yeah, sure. So I guess there's a few ways to look at this, but really the easiest way to think about this is that you have puts and you have calls. Calls are traditionally a bet that something will move up in price, and you can buy or sell them. And puts are the opposite, bet that something is going to go down in price. And so options are a little tricky for most folks that are maybe new to them because there's a lot of factors that will involve their worth and their pricing. And if you think about it from traditional markets, it's a lot easier because with traditional markets, there's a lot of deep liquidity and a lot of these big names. Like let's say, I'm just using an example like Fuji Heavy, which is it's a Japanese, right? So there's going to be all kinds of options, liquidity, and depth, right? So you've got people that are interested in buying and selling. So there's a market there, right? Well, in DeFi, there's a lot thinner of a market, and there's also sometimes lack of demand, lack of liquidity. Then sometimes there's an excess of liquidity. And so all of those things kind of factor into the market price of these buying and selling of puts and calls. And so when you have something that's in the money, it means that your strike price, when you think about the price that you're predicting something will go to, is you're in the money when there's that moment where you're in profit, like the intrinsic value of what's going on in the token that you're buying the option for um, is profitable, right? And you could think the opposite of out of the money. So, like a good example of this might be if you have a call option on something, let's say it's Ethereum, and you've got a strike price of $1,000, and it's trading at $1,500. Okay, so you're in the money right now, right? Because the underlying is above the strike, and the more it increases, the better it is for you if you want to exercise that option. Now, exercising is a little different here, right? The reason it's important to talk about this and make this distinction is because in a lot of traditional markets where options are used, you can exercise before the option expires, right? So you have a time frame on these options. Well, in DeFi, a lot of times those options, there's no mid epoch liquidity. Okay. And so because of that, um, you have to hold on till the end. So there's a bit of complexity. The protocol that we were built on top of is a, protocol called DopeX. And so they're on Arbitrum. They recently launched on Polygon. And they have an even more complex system uh, for this type of thing, where they actually have a totally different way of pricing, and you have to deposit. So like with an option, you don't necessarily have to own it. With DopeX's model, in some of the cases, you have to own it and deposit it. So it's just there's some interesting complexities in DeFi, and I think anytime this stuff starts to get muddy, and if your brain starts spinning, and you're like, okay, if I don't understand it, I won't I won't buy into it. Um, that's where I think Jones really shines because we're able to take this stuff and make it very simple. So an example would be our MetaVault. Okay, so we had this idea to build out something where if you have an LP, that LP, maybe you don't want to deal with impermanent loss as much because you have bias directionally that something will go up. What's the most common thing people do if they're LPing and they know the market is running? They unLP. They unLP, they put it all in the token that's running, and then they capture more upside, right? Because they're not losing half of that upside. Um, so what we set out to do is say, okay, well, how do we keep people mining, right? But be able to capture some of that directional bias. So we came up with something called MetaVaults. And the idea with MetaVaults is you take half your yield that you would be earning during that 1 week time frame. So our vaults are set up so that every week this happens again. And you can either go onto the bull side or you can go onto the bear side. And if you're on the bull side, we're going to buy some calls. And if you're on the bear side, we're going to buy some puts. And this all is automated. There's no like human interaction here. It's all on chain. And it's all being done through DopeX. And so we have an upgrade of that that's going to be coming hopefully by around this time next month, depending on audit, a few other things. But we're going to expand the amount of pairs that we'll be able to use. Right now, it's just DPX and RDPX, which are the DopeX tokens, along with ETH. And then we'll be expanding that to a lot of other ETH LPs. And we think there's a pretty interesting market there because right now, if you think about it, there's a lot of folks that LP and that's pretty much it. And then Uni V3 happened, and now you started to set in motion that, well, folks have to maybe pay a little more attention to their LPing. But if folks in crypto are like most people, they would rather just kind of put something in and forget it. And we haven't seen anybody really try this before. So I think it'll be interesting, if nothing to say the least. And
Nice.
we make it as simple as just picking a side, and then we'll also have a third option, which we're calling the crab vault. So that'll be new. So we'll have those three options that you'll be able to use. So pretty cool stuff. And then I think again, these are the type of things that I think are very scalable. These are scalable solutions that work not just here, but let's say Polygon has an options market at some point, and things are you know thick enough in liquidity that we can go over there and start buying those options. Well, we can start doing meta vaults there, right? We can do it with Metis. We can do it with
Nice.
um, on mainnet. It really doesn't matter. So these are the type of like kind of scalable solutions that are a bit unique and that we try and spin up at Jones. And if you don't think that's too exciting or degen enough, we've got other stuff that's maybe a little more spicy.
I think it's cool.